And I'm sitting here now talking to you in Madge Goddard's home, and after the bombing, eventually 3 months after, I think it might have been, my father bought another house, because you don't realise, I didn't realise really, you see there was no house left. It was wartime. My dad could have probably bought a house, but if you lose 6 people from your close family and others are injured, you know, how does one person cope with that? I mean, I think my father was incredibly brave, and my sister Dorothy, you know, 17-year-old, went off into the Wrens. My brother Len was on barrage balloons up in London. He was put on a train to come home. His wife had to break the news to him that he'd lost 6 members of the family. When I was at Mrs. Clark's at Whithill, by good luck for me, she sent me to the girls' grammar school, and it was called the kindergarten when I was 7, and it's in the house that I went to. The part of the school was in Suffolk House in Westgate. That school experience, although I didn't achieve a lot, and I think I was probably traumatised because I was there from 7 until 16, but what a wonderful start in life. Of course, you don't realise at the time the things that you're touched by, things that you've no idea are going to be so vital to you when you get older. And to my amazement and shock really, my father didn't believe in education because he was a self-made man from Grimsby. And I didn't know until relatively, probably 20 years ago, that he didn't agree with education. And I just can't believe that really, but it's true, it's true. And I never ever spoke to my father about the bombing. And he died when I was 24. And I didn't really talk to my brothers and sisters about it. I don't remember talking to them, and it's only recently, in the last few years, 5 years probably, that my brother John, who survived the bombing but was injured, and he's told me bits and pieces about where the bombs actually landed. And of course he was 13, so he was more aware, because I must be a very positive person, because, you know, they say the glass is either half empty or half full. Well, I think as I'm the only one that got out of that house, yes, I was unconscious. Obviously I must have been knocked unconscious to wake up under the ground or surrounded by the gravel. But I've always thought how lucky I was to get out of that, and saddened that you know, I didn't know my mother, but I know she was a very, very strong woman, because there's so much. There's also the records that the 2 bombs that dropped on our house, they were a sweep of 26 high-velocity bombs, and they came from Scunthorpe, which was of course where the steel works were, to Grimsby, where the docks were, to Louth, where of course there was a malt kiln, a railway, a hospital, just across the road from where 34 Grimsby Road was. And then it went on to Alford, and it killed the night porter at Alford Station, and then it flew off after landing the last bombs in Skegness, and there were intermittent places on the way. Now that is a record that I have of that's shown. You know, it's incredible how these things have all come to me over the years, and it's like people still say things to me about that night. Jeff Allinson, for instance, he worked in the post office as a young man, and he was on fire watch duty at the top of the post office, which is in Eastgate. It's opposite about number 20, and he recalls that night. it's all linked in. If you're in a community, and if there's anything I would like to say before I depart this world, and I'm not planning to go yet, is that you really need to value every human being that you come across, because you can replace a new car, you can replace a house, you can replace everything, just about, but you cannot replace a human being.
Clearly the incident that your family went through was very, very tragic, and you survived through the war. Is there anything that you can remember that you felt was an amusing story?
Yes, I can, because when, as I said, I went out to live on the 8th of September with Mr. and Mrs. John Clark out at Withcall. Not only was it was a farming family, and you know, I went in the horse and the cart to feed the animals. It was wonderful, really. And of course, don't forget, even though the war was on, people were always raising money for different organisations, especially prisoners of war out in Germany. And I don't know the ins and outs of how they got the boxes, but they did boxes through the Red Cross, and I suspect the British Legion. And so we used to hold, not we, but they used to hold Dad's friends and family, and other people that I wasn't aware of. And so one of the fates that obviously I suspect I was living with my dad then, and so we went to support the Clarks. So a very important part of the surviving, really, me especially. And there was a pig bowling. I'm sure you know what I mean by pig bowling. I don't think they do it now, but there are all these farmers and important people there. And of course, whether they let me win the pig, but I won the pig. Now that and that has been talked about several times. Unfortunately, at the age I am, that a lot of people have died. But funnily enough, yesterday I saw Jim Clark. Now Jim's just a year or two younger than me, and he would be there at the time, you see. But I won the pig. But telling the story now, I'm just wondering if that was arranged.